consciousness, the final frontier. These are the voyages into the universe between your ears. Our mission: to explore collective wisdom, seek out amazing secrets, and spread the message of personal potential. All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Tim Starr. I am your host for The Universe Between Your Ears, along with my co-host, Mr. Gabi Musheyev.
Hello to everyone. Thank you, Tim.
And we're joined today by a friend of mine, Ms. Kim Sutton. Although she started her career as an interior architect working in large firms in Chicago, New York City, Connecticut, and Ohio. The downturn of the economy in 2008 allowed Kim to find herself and discover her true life passions and purpose. She's the host of the Positive Productivity Podcast and the author of Chronic Idea Disorder, The Entrepreneur's Guide to Overcoming Idea Overwhelm. In addition, Kim's the owner of Sutton Strategic Solutions, a digital marketing agency which helps coaches share their products and services with the people who need them most. Kim, welcome.
Thank you so much.
So,
I was waiting for Gabby to go upside down.
Yeah.
I just had to throw that out there.
This is take two for the people who are listening or watching. We just went through some gyrations. Gabby was on the ceiling for a little bit on his screen. We're not going to show that to you. Take our word for it. It was fun. So,
yes.
Your podcast is aimed. Well, I'm making an assumption here to some degree, I guess. Your podcast is aimed at entrepreneurs primarily, right? And not necessarily everyday people. However, there are things within what you're covering on that do apply to all of us, right? We all get overwhelmed in our daily lives sometimes, and there's just too many things to do and not enough time, et cetera, et cetera. Or maybe there's plenty of time and we just feel overwhelmed for whatever reason.
Right.
So it's one of the reasons I wanted to bring you in to join us, because you're going to have some things to share in that direction, I think, because we're not really aimed at entrepreneurs necessarily. But let's start just because, your podcast was one of the first that I was on when I got started doing this stuff. And so thank you for that.
So I didn't scare you away. That's good.
No. And what you had to get on your podcast, there's a series of questions that you were asking, which was a surprise to me. I don't know what I was expecting necessarily. I guess I was just expecting to go say, hey, let me on. But it made me think, and I copied them and I have them saved someplace. And I thought, it's a great idea to sort of vet the people coming in. And do you have answers for some of these basic questions? Who are you and what is it you want to bring to the audience, that kind of stuff. But I remember one of them, and correct me if I'm wrong, but don't you ask what's your definition of positive productivity?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you the same question.
Oh, Tim. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to give it a little bit of background.
Yeah.
Yes, I do talk primarily to entrepreneurs. However, I am also the mom of 5, ranging from 3-year-old twins up to a 15-year-old at the present time. And positive productivity grew out of a 1.5-year stretch of sleep deprivation, where I was sleeping 2 to 3 hours a night and had wound up in a deep, dark hole. And I realized, number one, I was trying to do too much, and I was letting the things that didn't work take control of my whole mindset. But out of that, I had a huge awakening, and I realized, number one, positive productivity is not about perfection. Gabby's going to wind up on the ceiling some days, and I'm going to burn dinner just about every single night, and my kids are going to do who knows what. I look forward to every day picking them up from daycare just to see how they keep me on my toes when we get home. So number one, it's about keeping our chin up through all adversity, and then number two, keeping on moving.
Okay.
Because if we stand still, even with our chin up, we're never going to get anywhere.
True. There's a guy named Bob Harrington, who was a retired preacher, was a inspirational speaker, motivational speaker that I saw live a couple of times, and he was great. And I remember one line of his, when you stop learning, you start dying.
Yes.
And it goes beyond learning also. As you stop growing, you stop doing, there's no plateaus, I guess. We don't get to just rest and put your feet up for a while. Nothing, everything's in motion, everything stops. And if you're not going in one direction, you're going in a different direction.
Right.
So we're totally unscripted and
I'd like to find out, because I heard 2008 happened, and so it led you to, I guess, to reevaluating what you were doing before 2008, right? Which,
right.
as I understood, was working in the corporate environment, correct?
I was an interior architect, and in 2008, I was designing schools around the state of Ohio. And because they were public schools, they are all funded by taxpayers. And especially here in Dayton, we lost a lot of big manufacturing factories. We lost a big GM plant. We lost a DHL, big center, and we lost a lot. So the taxpayers were losing their jobs. They didn't want to pay for school improvements. I lost my job. And
that's 2008. And how many kids you had at that time?
At that time, I had 2, and I was married to my ex-husband in a very volatile marriage. We pushed each other's buttons on purpose, and we really didn't know how to get along. I don't think we knew how to get along from day one. And so I lost my job. I had already been trying I was giving entrepreneurship a stab and was doing it all wrong. I made $0.25 a day. Mm-hmm. And I decided to go, and I need to share this just because it tells how I got to where I am today. I went to a local networking group to try to build my own interior design business, and I met a chiropractor who is now one of my closest friends, and he introduced me to the law of attraction, which I had never known about before. And up until that point, I had a dark cloud over my head 24/7. The world hates me. This person did me wrong. This person from 30 years ago is a jerk, Yeah. And then he told me about the law of attraction, and I went home and I looked it up, and I was mind blown. And I started thinking about it. And when I realized that I really do have the power to control my happiness and so many other things that are happening in my life, doors opened. It was like those cartoons where you see the heavens parting and you hear the musical instruments. That was totally it. So that set off a whole course of action, and I ended up leaving him about a year later and finding my soulmate, absolutely my soulmate, on Craigslist of all places. And I was looking for a couch. I found my husband. And
that's how the law of attraction works.
Yes.
So go ahead and finish, and I want to circle back to the law of attraction.
We added by accident. We do know how it happens. We added 3 more kids to our family, and we do know how that works again. And just the road took me to starting a business, which I never expected to grow as it has. And look at, I was scared to get behind microphones back then. And now I'm 350 episodes into my own podcast. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. So I know a little bit of your story, a little pieces of different things. But before we go there, I want to, in case anybody is watching this or listening to this and the term law of attraction is new to them, or if they're a little fuzzy on what it's all about, you want to share your definition of it or your understanding of it?
Sure. So we have the power. I want to give an example that I use all the time on my podcast. Say you wake up late, you oversleep. You have the power in that moment to decide how you are going to run your day. You can think of it of, insert a cuss word here. I don't know if they're swearing on here. I'm screwed for the whole rest of the day, right?
Yeah.
And this day is going to be horrible. Or you can say, wow, I feel so good. You know, I must have really needed that sleep, which is what I did this morning, actually. I needed that sleep, and this is going to be an amazing day. And I guarantee you that if you start it just looking at how crappy your day has started just because you were late and now you have to rush, then the whole rest of your day is going to feel like that. So law of attraction is about thinking positive thoughts and manifesting people, places, things, experiences into your life by thinking about them. But I want to say it's not just about thinking, though. And I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong. They don't take action.
Mm.
You can't expect to sit on your couch watching Family Guy every night, dreaming about how you want to win the lottery, and then not buy a ticket.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I want to just add to the idea about the action. In the Gabby and I actually met through a law of attraction meetup, an Abraham Hicks thing. And the teaching there
as anyone else meets because of law of attraction.
Yeah. But
whether you accept it or not, right?
Yes. The teaching there is that you don't take action for the sake of taking action. You take action when you're inspired to do it. So, it kind of starts with what you're thinking about. But as you're thinking about maybe a problem that you're facing at work or, with family, whatever, if you allow it, you'll get ideas about what to do about it. And that's an inspired idea. So you take action on the inspiration, not just, I don't know what, I got a problem, I got to fix it, and you just run out and start doing for the sake of doing because this is somehow going to bring the right answer. So, but yeah, okay. I just wanted to kind of cover that for people who are unfamiliar with the idea and because I know they're out there. I'm hearing a plane or somebody.
Well, when you're mentioning, Kim, that you never thought that you're going to become an entrepreneur, right? I think that law of attraction is a critical precursor to even considering becoming a successful entrepreneur, understanding of that law, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Really, entrepreneurship is the way someone thinks primarily, right? And, with my experience from the corporate world, in business schools, they teach to avoid risk. They teach how to mitigate risk. In the entrepreneurship, being an entrepreneur, you have to embrace risk. Nothing is going to come out from anything if you don't understand how to really take risks. It's the lifeblood of success, risk, right? And so when you are doing your work, are you also educating people whether, they are ready for entering the world of entrepreneurship?
No, I work with established entrepreneurs. Yes. However, in anybody that I'm talking to, I do work on eliminating the ifs and bringing in the wins. Because if it's always an if, it's always going to be an if, in my opinion. Have confidence in what you're working towards, and it will be a win, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You can't say, if I meet my soulmate someday, because that automatically puts doubt in. But when I meet my soulmate someday, then it will be absolutely amazing. I had no intention of meeting my husband on Craigslist. As I said, I was looking for a couch, and I did see a little button that said men looking for women, and I went in there just to laugh at the jerks that were looking for women. And that's generalizing, and that I wasn't thinking jerks. I was thinking a much worse word. But I had just a couple weeks before watched The Bucket List with Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson.
Oh, I love that movie, yeah.
It's an amazing movie.
Yeah.
And out of that, I had decided, okay, I'm going to write my soulmate spec sheet. Not a bucket list, but my soulmate spec sheet. If I'm ever going to date somebody again, then he has to meet these, I think it's 57 items. So I had it out there, but I was
trying to remember who told me about this, and it was you.
It was me,
okay,
yeah. And so I clicked, and I was prepared to just find guys who were just looking for sex. Just got to put it like that. But 2 clicks in, I find him. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I wrote him and I said, I'm going through a divorce. If you're still single in 6 months, can you contact me? I'd like to meet you. It didn't work that way. We met 2 days later and we've been together ever since. Yeah.
Didn't you tell me you had this long list and he ticked off all the boxes but 2 or something?
Oh yeah, all but 2. He doesn't do this loud sports whistle that I don't even know why I wanted it, because if he did, it would probably be hurting my ears and irritating. You know, the one with, where they, for the audio people that won't, it's when you stick your fingers in your mouth and you just can do it really loud. I don't even know why I wanted that at all. And I think I also wanted somebody who didn't swear. But my husband's a U.S. Air Force veteran. We're not going to get that out of him, even with 3-year-olds in the house.
Yeah. So
that's a beautiful story.
It's pretty cool. I want to talk about, because there's lessons in it, but you went through some really hard times. And, I remember the story about no water.
Yeah.
Sending the boys out to pee in the snow or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to share that? Or
I will share that. Yes. So our entrepreneurial journey has been an experience. I started my business in 2012, unexpectedly got pregnant immediately, had her. We decided we were done. The universe and, well, we say that God had a sense of humor, and we found out we were pregnant with twins. And I was the primary breadwinner. My husband does work, but not a very high paying job. So we faced, through all those pregnancies, we faced a lot of financial struggle, and it had been, and to be totally honest, continues to be a struggle today at times. But we had gotten to the point where it felt like every other day, one of our utilities, we were getting a disconnect notice, or they were actually getting shut off. And on this particular day, the water got shut off. And it had snowed outside. And I live outside of Dayton, Ohio. We do get snow, but not very frequently at all. And my husband said to my older boys, he said, you can go outside and pee, but bring snow in and put it in the toilet so Mom can go in there. And we to this day get a kick out of it, because of any day in the middle of winter in Ohio, the chance of getting snow is pretty slim to none. But the universe provided for us on that day. It provided for me at least. Yeah. And I didn't go into my bed and cry. I probably did cry a little bit at my desk, but I didn't go and hide underneath my covers and just complain about how everything was going wrong. And we took action, and the water was back on that afternoon. I know it doesn't always work that way for people, and it hasn't always worked for us that way. We've had to go a day without heat or a day without electric, but we've never had to go any longer than that. And my husband's car was even repoed, and we got it back a day before it was going to be auctioned. And I'm not bragging about our ability to defeat financial struggles, but I am very excited about the next stage, where it's not about overcoming the struggles, but about building wealth.
Right. Well, the reason that I wanted to talk about this a little bit is because, it's an example of a couple of different, number one, the tough times, there's exceptions to everything, but the tough times generally, they're not going to last. When we're in the middle of it, we have to try to remember that that's the reality, is that it's not going to last forever. We may not be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel yet, but, it's the way that you deal with it is to just keep moving.
Yeah.
One foot in front of the other, and don't worry about, I've got to solve all of these problems that I have all at once. You deal with what's on the plate in front of you, just one thing at a time. And then all of a sudden you've taken care of one thing, and the load starts to get a little lighter, and you can do another, and you build a little momentum, and life changes.
Yeah. And I just said you need to take action, but sometimes you also need to be still. And I just learned this yesterday, or was reminded. Somebody told me, be still, and for me, be still and pray, and the answer that you're looking for will come. And we're facing a little housing struggle at the moment. We've been paying our house. And entrepreneurship and buying homes is tricky wherever you are. And we're facing eviction because the person that we've been buying from wants to get more and put it on the market because the market's really hot. Can't blame her at all. And I've told her that. I understand where you're coming from. We're outside the terms of our contract. I understand. But it's scary. 5 kids, wondering where we're going to live. But I was actually doing an interview for my podcast, and she said, be still, pray, and the answer will come. And I tried it. Being still is, for me, that's like telling me to stand on fire. Okay. It's really hard for me to stay still, but I was, and the answer came within an hour, and we're not moving.
Cool.
And I told my husband, and he's like, what did you do? I think he was expecting me to say, sweetie, I went and robbed a bank and now we have all the money for our house. But no, I was still.
Well, this is part of the law of attraction process, right? It's kind of what I was talking about a little bit ago is you have to find a way to allow the idea or the opportunity or the person, whatever, to let that come to you. And if what you're doing is running around like a squirrel, it doesn't get the opportunity to come and you recognize it. But when that comes, then you can go, oh, here's my opportunity to do something. And that's when you take action.
Absolutely. Can I share another example?
Of course. We brought you here to talk. So
in 2009, when I met the chiropractor, I was, as I said, trying to build my interior design business. But that was where I realized I didn't really want to be doing it, but I didn't know at the point that I'm about to tell you. And so I got introduced to the law of attraction, and I saw all these people posting about how they wanted to win the lottery. And this is back before Facebook, or right when Facebook was getting started. So I was on a Yahoo forum, I think, Yahoo group. And I said, I don't really care about winning the lottery, but I'd love to work with somebody who has, designing their house or whatever. Forgot about it. A couple months goes by, and there, one town north of me, Piqua, Ohio, a whole bunch of city workers had pooled together their money for the Mega Millions, I believe it was, and they won hundreds of millions of dollars. And as it turned out, the chiropractor who introduced me to the law of attraction, we had never had this conversation about working for somebody who had won the lottery. But he had a financial advisor who coincidentally had been hired by one of those families and was working on their behalf to find an interior designer to work on their home. Wow. So I got the call. I was like, whoa, that's cool,
It's so cool to me how so many of these things happen where, the stuff is being created from 2 or 3 different directions long before we get the idea that, I want to do whatever, and I wonder sometimes if we tend to think that we get the idea and then it happens. I wonder sometimes, it seems like the universe creates these things and then gives you the idea so that you go, oh,
I could definitely see that. I definitely think that the universe is just waiting for us to wake up. It's like, hello, do you hear me? I'm going to keep on saying this enough times until you hear me. Yeah.
Well, we have our lessons, and sometimes we're resistant to the learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Gabby, you looked like you were about to say something.
No, I'm just still processing your story. The story with the house and entrepreneurship, and the houses, how we often use our houses as a way to provide initial funding, right, for whatever we want to do, and it's always at risk. And I've had the same kind of sort of like situation in 2008, like you, as a matter of fact, when obviously everyone was affected, right? And I seriously started thinking going into business for myself, and having kids and all these responsibilities. But I mean, the main question that I wanted to answer for myself was, the risk question, right? Will I be able to take risks, and can I sustain it? Can I sustain, especially because it could put all these people who are dependent on me at the positions when they would have to really significantly probably see their quality of life going down for a period of time, because it's always it's just often a struggle, right, to get something going. And I have tremendous respect to people who really were brave enough, but not just brave. I think you not only are doing it, you are sharing your knowledge and the way it would work, as a matter, and the only way it would work, positive productivity, right?
Yeah.
I listened to a few episodes of your podcast, and I love them. Right from the start, when the music, and Tim and I, we were looking for a nice segment, the introductory music, and yours is just fabulous right from the start. I loved it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I highly recommend it, and also the website, right, was wonderfully built, and it leads you, and you want to continue exploring it, So it's a wonderful, wonderful beginning, or maybe not a beginning. You're already doing this for quite some years, right?
I'm a year and a half into the entrepreneurial journey, or into the podcast journey. Uh-huh. And one thing that I've realized recently that I have to keep on saying is there's no excuse for not doing it. If you have got a dream, then don't give yourself excuses. I've got 5 kids, 5 cats, a husband, and a dog. A lot of people, I don't want to say the universe.
12 kids, right?
And
exactly.
You find time for podcasting.
And I find time for podcasting.
And I salute you, and this is amazing.
Yeah. And there are days when I'm doing my solo episodes when I get inspired, but I've got 3 kids under the age of 4 who are fighting over this, that, and every other thing in the next room. And I'm like, well, positive productivity is not about perfection. Why don't I just push record, let people hear what's actually going on? I mean, I was trying to record one last fall, and there was a demolition derby, no joke, going on at the fairgrounds. Do you remember that, Tim?
Yeah.
Yes. Going on at the fairgrounds, which are actually a couple miles from my house. But every time I started talking, you could hear, I'm like, are you serious? And finally, I was just like, demolition derby and 10,000 other excuses you can use to not take action.
Yeah.
But seriously, stop using your demolition. I'm trying to say that you're doing it to yourself. I don't know if there's a demolitioning. You're demoing yourself. Thank you. Demolishing.
Self-demolishing.
Yeah. Just as an aside, I have a cousin who used to drive demolition derby, and he and his team, they were written up in Car and Driver or something as the winningest team in sports, something like that. And so then at 30 or 35 or something, he was walking with a cane.
Ouch.
And you are such an inspiration to all these moms with many kids. I mean, aside from what you're doing, what I really appreciate is how your vibration is going to be taught. Your children are watching all these experiences, and they're going to take this away when they're growing up, right? Yeah. They're going to use those amazing programming. This is a very positive, productive way of looking at life, and I think that it practically guarantees that they're going to be successful and fulfilled. You know? And that's, you may not realize this, but this is probably the biggest job and the biggest accomplishment that you're doing. You know?
I would second that. Yeah.
I'm thank you so much. I have to say on my kids' behalf that there have been plenty of times that I wish that we were financially just overflowing. However, it has taught our kids so many valuable lessons. It's taught them the value of love. It's taught them that we don't need material possessions to be happy. We don't need to be going out to eat. We don't need designer clothes, we don't, and even if they want designer clothes, they don't need to be brand new with tags. And that is like my 12 and 15-year-old. I tell them what their back to school budget is, and they know exactly where they're going. And it's not to the mall, to the brand new stores, because they know the value. They know. And even going to the grocery store, it's, it's a school of what feels like hard knocks, but the school of life actually has some pretty amazing lessons if we're willing to accept them.
Yeah.
Generic is often just as well. Generic sometimes tastes better at the grocery than the brand name. Okay, I'm not going to go that far because maybe they'll sponsor my podcast sometime. But there's tomato sauce brands that I don't buy even when I have the money, just because I realize that I like the generic just as well.
Yeah.
I think what if I just manifest that? A big tomato sauce company is now going to offer to be a sponsor of the Positive Productivity Podcast. Yeah.
Doing podcasts there are revelations that come, one is that it's so much fun, and I'm speaking for myself, I guess, but I'm sure I'm not alone. I'm really enjoying the people that we meet. We get to spend time talking to people like you who have obviously their own experiences, and they have lessons to share with us. And sometimes it's just, reminding us of something we already know. But, I don't even know where I'm going with this. You learn something sometimes and you take it for granted as you go forward, or you forget about it. It's not always present in your mind, and then, but there will be times when you look back, there would be times where, had I remembered this little nugget that I learned from somebody, this event would have been easier to get through or something.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get somebody in a conversation and they remind you of something, and the light, you almost hear the light ding.
Yeah.
And it becomes so valuable. And this is the reason that people, need to hear like motivational speakers and things, because motivation dies off, right? If it's not reinforced, and lessons die off if they're not reinforced. We need the repetition,
Yeah.
So
one of your episodes I listened to was parenturpreneurship, right? Am I saying that right? So parents who are choosing the path of entrepreneurship, right? And how do you balance, right? That's one question that
there's no such thing as balance.
Yeah, that's. So.
I mean, to be totally honest to the listeners, I Facebook messaged him 20 minutes before the episode started, before our recording started. I was like, is this a video call? Yes. It's like, okay, no problem. I just needed to know how fast I need to put on makeup. Or something along the lines of that.
Yeah.
There's no balance. There's more days than not when I try to cook that my dinner is burnt, that all of our dinner is burnt. Thankfully, that's also taught my 15-year-old how to cook, because he would rather eat better food. Score for me, know? So last night he just took it upon himself to cook dinner because he knew that was how everybody was going to get something edible. I didn't have to ask. I manifested it through burnt food. So, and I've had to take calls in my car because I'm running late. I have gone through the sleep deprivation thing, and no matter if you're an entrepreneur or working a job or not working at all, sleep deprivation is not something to be played with. You might have lofty life goals, but you're not going to get them if you are so anxious and depressed out of sleep deprivation that you're about to do something. And I'll just leave it at that because I don't want to respect your listeners. But that's just something that you don't mess with.
Yeah.
Well, sleep deprivation could, when you were going after an idea and you have all these thoughts going through your mind and you're actively planning, your brain is in like high gear doing all this. It's exciting, but at the same time you may lose sleep, and it could be okay for a couple of days, but then you just get exhausted, obviously. So, yeah.
Absolutely. But some of us forget, and I say some of us because I was one of them. When I was chasing income rather than wanting to make an impact, then I was chasing every idea that could possibly have a big money sign attached to it. But I didn't think them through. I would start this one, get 75% through, and then see another idea flash into my brain. And I would drop the first one. So all that work that I'd put into that idea just got flushed, essentially. And I like to say I have a graveyard of ideas in my backyard now. But when we really start honing in and letting the universe tell us this is what you're supposed to be doing, then it's so easy to choose that one or two or three. Don't tell my listeners. Ideas that you really should be working on. And then it's a lot easier to say no to people and opportunities, even your kids and your husband or your wife, just to tell them no so that you can focus on that one thing. And trust me, every time you get one thing 100% complete, it feels so much better.
I want to comment on that saying no. I am sure that there are people who hear that and just cringe. They just rebel at that idea. It is okay to say no to people because your first responsibility is to yourself. You have to protect your well-being because if you don't, you can't bring your best to anybody else. And if you're just saying yes to everything because you feel like you have to, you feel like you have a commitment to somebody, you're responsible for something, then you're going to run yourself into the ground, and then you'll just drop your commitments and whatever. You just won't be able to perform for these things anyway. So yeah, you saying no to the particular people or opportunities that really are not going to serve what you want to be doing or need to be doing is a smart thing. It's a necessary thing to do.
Yeah.
People need to just accept it.
People really need to look at each of these before they say yes, and really do the pro-con list. And pro-con lists are not just for, hypothesis in science class. That was probably a bad example, but the last time I remember actually being told to do one involuntarily was in high school. But it's not just for that, because I had a client who was trying to get me to submit a proposal on a potentially huge project, huge meaning time-wise, with somebody big name. However, the job description wasn't really what I wanted. The income wasn't really what I wanted. And while 2 years ago I would have said yes just to get my foot in the door, I sat on it because I realized that my heart was telling me, don't. You want that money, Kim. You know you do. But what are you going to do? Are you going to take it just for the money and just for the connection? Or are you going to work so hard on what you've been working on for the last couple of years and getting back into a healthy place and trusting that God and the universe are going to provide what you need? And so I challenge you, what are you going to do? And so I decided not to go. And if I had decided to go on that, then I would have been too busy for other huge opportunities that I was interested in that later came up. And I would have set myself in that downward spiral because there's no way, I know myself, there's no way I would have said no to the opportunities that I really did want. But I would have been not sleeping again.
Yeah, and it makes me think of the value of clarity, right? Of knowing what you want to do, because it does a couple of different things. One is it tends to maybe it's just that we get blinders, right, and we don't see the other things that are out here and available. But it also could be that they just sort of fade away. They don't come around so much when you're really focused on this is where I'm going. But then the other part is what you just were saying. when something does come along that is tempting, it is another, a shiny object, it's much easier to stay on track and say no to these things, because you can be more objective about whether or not it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Right? Because in different circumstances, maybe it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Like you said, 2 years earlier, it might have been a great idea, but you're farther down a different path. Maybe it doesn't serve anymore.
You have to be careful what you put out there too when you're saying things or even thinking them in the negative light. In 2008, when I lost my job, I had already started my previous business. I was only making $0.25 a day. Okay. So it was never going to go anywhere. It never did go anywhere, but that's not what I was putting out to the universe. I was like, maybe today's the day that I'll get fired from my job so I can work in my business full time. I was joking. I never saw it coming. Did I want to be there? No. To be totally honest, I detested the commute. I didn't really care for the people. I didn't want to be an interior designer. I realized that not even a week into the job. But I started doing that. My husband and I do not fight. Like, we've had 4 fights in 8 years. And we had our biggest fight ever, our most recent fight, a year ago. And he asked me, it was all his fault. He'll admit it. I'm not just saying that. He asked me, what can I do to make it up to you? Completely joking, I said, I want 3 kittens. Completely joking. That same day, he accidentally let my unfixed cat out of the house. 2 months later, 5 kittens. That's how we have, you rehome 3 of those. That's how we have 5 cats at the present moment. So be careful what you're wishing for, what you're speaking, what you're thinking, because you're a pretty powerful manifester.
With the least amount of attachment comes the fastest.
Yes.
Comes the easiest.
Yep.
When you flippantly say, I want 3 kittens, and you forget completely about that in 4 minutes, and you're off and doing your life, and that stuff comes back knocking on the door fast.
They were born in the middle of a podcast episode.
I remember
was talking to a guest.
Could you hear this? Yes.
Yes. Having a guest conversation, and my husband comes out. She's having those kittens. It's like, oh my gosh. So you're never going to do that again, right? Because the next time I'm going to tell you I want triplets. And even though our kitchen is closed, I know the universe is powerful now. So he's like, yes, I will never do that again.
Yeah. There's quick comment is that because you have those things going on during your podcasts, that has to be a big piece of why people tune in and listen.
Yeah.
You're a real person. You're not all polished and it's going to be this way or I'm not going to air it. So that aside, but I was thinking about this yesterday, I think it was, that, this idea of the mind doesn't hear the negatives. So it's say, don't do this, right? Or I don't want that. It doesn't hear the don't. It doesn't understand that. And I couldn't ever get my mind around why this was. And the idea came to me yesterday that, what we have carrying around and between our ears here is a creation machine, right? Its only job is to create. It can't create a negative. It can't not do, right? Yeah. So when it hears those things, it functions on everything we tell it. Yeah. And so if we say, don't drop that bowl of spaghetti sauce on the white carpet, it's going to try to make us drop that bowl of spaghetti sauce on the white carpet because it can't process a don't.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's like my mother told me when I was 4 not to touch the hot muffin pan. So of course I touched the hot muffin pan. Yeah. The universe is the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That part of the law of attraction took me a while to really comprehend. It was very that, and also the art of allowing, right?
Yes.
The real meaning of it. When especially when Jerry went over it in his book. But I think I was actually, the whole book was on YouTube, and I was just listening to it for hours, right? And when we were talking about opportunities, right? When people are asking and being able to say no, right? What if the universe was engaging a cooperative component and sending that component your way to contribute in some way? How do you make sure that by saying no to this and to that and to that, that you're not missing a real thing that really, like, that has to be something that...
Because I don't think it will leave you alone if you're supposed to stay with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I told you my husband and I met on Craigslist. He had 2 wives before me who, let's just say, they weren't good. So he meets me and I'm nice and I'll get up and I'll see if he wants a Mountain Dew or something or whatever drink I got for him in the fridge, which blew his mind by itself. I scared the heck out of him. Okay. Because he was waiting to see what I was going to do to hurt him. Right. So he decided to sabotage us like a couple months into our relationship, and I caught him. He had put up another ad, then broke a date. I saw the ad and I broke up with him. I was not looking for somebody else. I thought it was weird that he broke a date. I was like, I wonder if he's out there again. Found it. So I knew that, well, for the 2 months after that, I could not sleep. In the 13 years that my ex-husband and I were together, I never once dreamed about him. For those 2 months that we were apart, my current husband and I dreamt about him every night. I couldn't leave him alone. He couldn't stop thinking about me. He told me that, because I finally gave it one last shot. And I would actually tell God, because I am a Christian. I just had to put this out there. I know some Christians don't agree with law of attraction. I know law of attraction doesn't necessarily, some people aren't necessarily, spiritual in organized religion type of way. But I told God, okay, he does not want to be with me, so let me be without him. And I would make it a day. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, I get a text message from my now husband. Like, I thought I told you, just let me be, right? Like, I am trying to let him go, God. So why are you sending me text messages from him now? And I think that's how it is. We can say no to something now, but if it's supposed to be in our life, it will find its way. Maybe we just can't see the pieces. There's a parable about a guy who's stuck in a flood and he's on the roof of his house.
Yeah.
Have you heard this one?
Yeah.
And he prays to God for help. And God sends like a motorboat by and the people say, do you need some help? And he's like, no, God's sending me help. And then then a person on the jet ski goes by. Hey, do you need some help? No, I'm good. And then he sits there for a little bit longer. He's like, God, I prayed for help. Why aren't you sending me anything? And God says, I already sent it to you twice. Why didn't you take it?
Yeah.
So, we're getting those signals in our life all the time. But a lot of the time, just like I talked about earlier, we're not being still and listening, and we don't see and we don't hear. So we really do need to be still, even in our action.
Yeah. I think that we're creating these things for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it doesn't matter what the belief is around that. But what I see in my own life, and I see it for other people, we make a decision about something. We're going to travel down this one path. And once we make the decision, doors start opening. Our cooperative components start showing up. And then right behind that comes the challenges to the decision. The hurdles show up and things. And I think that's our old programming coming through and trying to stop us. But the story just told, I heard it as an old lady who, somebody came knocking on her door first, the river's rising and, you need to evacuate, you need some help. And, oh no, the Lord will provide, and then the water starts rising and she's forced to go up to the second floor and she's looking out the window and somebody comes by, and then a helicopter, she's on the roof finally and a helicopter comes and tries to pick her up. No, the Lord will provide. And she drowns because the water keeps rising. And then she goes up and she's arguing with God.
Yeah.
I believed in you all my life. I devoted my, I don't know, why didn't you say, what are you talking about? I sent sent a helicopter.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But it's sometimes these things show up and they would be great, but we're not ready.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes that's all, maybe a lot of the time, that's all that it really is that, you know, it's just not the time for us for whatever reason. But
many of us feel forced to.
The thing coming back and coming back, it won't go away.
Yeah. We often feel forced to make a decision. Like, I need to make a decision right now. But nobody can force us to make a decision right now. I mean, even we get an offer for something, or we put, we're like in a business meeting and we're trying to settle on a number. It's very intimidating to other people if we sit there and are just quiet.
Yep.
They could come back with a better offer just because we're sitting there being quiet. The universe can come back with something better just because we're being quiet. So.
Yeah, there's, you know, in sales, I remember being taught a long time ago that when someone, whether you're the buyer or the seller, someone asks for the sale, the close, the first person who talks loses. So if you're trying to sell something to somebody and you here's all the great things about this and it'll only cost you $20, and you shut up and you wait for them to respond. And if you don't and you keep talking, you're going to give them the opportunity to back away and get out.
Yeah.
And the same is true for the other side. You put the pressure on them to say yes or no, and they're one step closer to committing to it, because if they say no, then you can say, well, you know, why not? What is it that you don't like? Whatever. And you had another opportunity to resell.
Yeah.
You know? And
I was just
really
I was just talking to a speaker who went into a meeting and asked, well, what were you thinking for like a rate? Instead of going out and putting out his normal speaking fee, he said, well, what were you thinking? And he ended up getting 25% more than he had ever even imagined.
Yeah.
So universe, what are you thinking? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we undervalue ourselves so often. So often. I think the more humble somebody is about who they are, I think the more true that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we tend, and people, especially people who are sort of, I want to use the word caregivers, whether they're being paid to be caregivers or not. I mean, you're still, you know, you're a person who's out there doing for other people.
Yeah.
Whatever form that takes. They tend to be very reluctant to ask for money. And when they do, they don't want to ask for much.
Yep.
You know, and it's a tough lesson to learn that, you know what you're putting out there is valuable and is worth a lot more than you think it's worth.
Yep.
And there are people out there that no matter what you're asking for it, they're going to think it's a bargain.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's a tough lesson.
I mean, I was told when I started my business by a couple different clients who did end up hiring me that they almost didn't talk to me because they thought that based on my hourly rate, that there was no way I knew anything. And when we have that lack of confidence in ourselves and our situation, the world's going to think the same way.
Yeah.
If you're not confident in it, then why am I going to give it to you?
Yep. Yeah. I don't trust you. You don't trust yourself. I don't trust you. You know, I whenever I bring this up, there's one person in particular that comes right in the front of my mind, but there are people out there who won't buy things on sale, right? Who, if it's not expensive, they don't value it. And it doesn't matter how valuable something is. If it doesn't cost a bunch of money, they don't see value in it. And you could be the perfect person, whatever you're offering, you could be the perfect person for them, for their business, for their family, for whatever it is. And if they're wired that way and they're looking, they have an expectation of what it should cost, right? And if you're not in that ballpark, then something internally, something subconscious is going to say, you know what, I don't know why, but you're not the person.
If they need marketing automation, let me know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Gabi had to leave us. He had another appointment that he had to get to. So it's just you and me. So I'm trying to think of, I should ask you, are you up against any sort of time window? Anything we need to be worried about?
I'm okay. I'm working on a project, on a big launch for a client right now, but he's in a meeting too. Don't tell him I'm...
You're slacking.
Yeah.
Well, the cat's away.
No, but it's amazing though. Like the ability to be, and I know your show isn't just targeted towards entrepreneurs it's not targeted towards entrepreneurs, but the ability for me to actually be able to do this in the middle of a day, a work day, a business day, is something that I would have never seen 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I was working as an administrative assistant at Honda, and people would watch and time me when I went to the restroom or when I went for lunch or what time did you get here this morning? And I see that she's leaving 2 minutes before she should when she clocks out in the afternoon. And I never thought that there could be an alternate reality at all.
Yeah. There's so many lessons that we have to learn. One of the things, and I think I probably have told this at least in part on the show before, and so anybody who's watching or listening, if you've heard this before, I apologize. Suck it up. You're going to have to listen to it again. But, you and I met at an event, a podcasting event, that I could very easily have not showed up for.
Right.
I knew what podcasts were. I'm not sure I'd ever listened to maybe any.
Yeah.
But I went to this thing with no intentions of starting my own. I was going with the idea that maybe I could get onto somebody else's podcast and start to share what I want to share. But I only found out about the event because I was on the email list for the guy running it. And he had sent out this thing saying, I've got, it's what they all do. I've got 10 free tickets, tell me why I should let you in. And I hadn't heard about the event, knew nothing. I went to the link and checked it out. I was, this could be interesting, and here's who it's for. And all right. So I went back, I sent him an email, and within, it's probably within 2 hours, I got an email back saying, thanks, but no, I don't think you're far enough along yet for this to be right for you. And my initial reaction was basically, it's, okay, well, he said no. I tried. He said no. And then I thought, wait a minute. And I went back to the webpage, and there was 5 bullet points of who's this for. And I could tick off 3 or 4 of them. Yeah. And I got mad. I got pissed. Right. I went back. I sent him an email back. I said, this is coming right from your website. This is who it's for, blah, blah, blah. I'm this, blah, blah, blah. I said, I'm not big on hype, and I don't blow smoke up people's asses. And I'm not all full of energy, but I'm passionate about what I believe. And I got an email back from him in 20 minutes that said, love to have you.
That's awesome. I love that story. I've heard it before.
But so right behind that, was like, cool, I can go. Right behind that was the thought, oh shit. Because I knew this was coming from him. Mm-hmm. Right? This was not an automated responder thing. This is direct. This is definitely coming from him. So number one, I can't not go now. Which was something that it's an issue that I have been fighting for a long time. I could drive a long way to go to an event and sit in a parking lot and talk myself out of going inside, even if I paid for it. But the other thing was, I've got to go, but now I can't just sit in the audience and just be a fly on the wall for this, which is I'm perfectly happy to do. I just felt like I need, because he's now, in my mind, he's expecting me to be there. And now I have to show up in a bigger way. And so I honestly didn't do much more than I normally would have. Maybe a little more willing to be the first person to stick your hand out and say hello. But outside of that, I didn't do much different. But today here, you and I sit talking.
Yeah.
And a lot of other things have gone on that would not have gone on if I hadn't gone back to him, if I hadn't gotten mad, and stepped out of my comfort zone a little bit, just that far, and done something different. And my world is different in some ways, a lot.
Yeah.
And overnight. So we that's the lesson that I'm pounding into people lately, is that, you're that comfort zone, getting out of the box doesn't mean going very far. Doesn't have to mean that you leave your present circumstances completely behind and suddenly it's a brave new world and you're out there all alone. It's just sticking your toe in the water sometimes.
Yeah.
It's all that
so that same person, I had purchased his book, and I'm a certified partner in the marketing program that he uses. And when I was finishing up the order, I realized there's an error here that really needs to be fixed. I stepped out of my comfort zone big time, and I sent an email. You've got this problem on your order form. I'm a certified partner, and if you need me to fix it for you, I'd be happy to just go in. And he's like, actually, well, it's a year and a half later now. My number one client, great relationship, referring me, but it was because, and this hasn't happened since then, but because I put myself out there, like you did by responding.
Yeah. And it's
but how would if I had just said, he's got someone else, he's already got it handled, then I wouldn't have met you, Tim.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. True.
I don't spend a lot of time in Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah.
Just not there. Yeah. It's as we're talking, I get goosebumps sometimes. It's because sometimes when these things start to happen and we have that sort of conscious realization that I don't want to necessarily call it epiphany, but when something's going on and you suddenly become like really aware that this is a little different something, it gets exciting,
right?
And then you have, there's that little spark of hope for more, and you're more motivated. You've got literally more energy just because there's potential. Now you see potential that you didn't see 5 minutes ago.
Oh yeah.
And stuff like that. And so that's, for this show, this is one of the things that I'm hoping is going to help people to understand that it just doesn't take much.
No.
We tend to kind of look at the whole forest, right? You see all of these trees and you're supposed to cut all the trees down. I don't know, I'm coming up with something here, but you don't cut down all the trees at once. You cut down one, right? You do a little bit.
Yeah.
And that little bit will lead to the next thing. You don't have to worry about everything all at once. Right.
No, you absolutely don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you do need to think about how you're going to take your next action.
Yep. But, sometimes you don't know, and that's okay. But the thing is that we tend to then, I've got a friend who comes up with great business ideas, and she can sell them to you, and you go, well, I'm in, let's do it. But she won't pull the trigger on stuff, right? She wants to see every light down for the next mile. Every light needs to be green before she wants to take the car out of park.
So is she waiting for perfection?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see that with a lot of my clients. I see it. I've seen it with myself. I've seen it with family. That until all the balls are lined up, then there's not going to be any action. You've heard people say before, I'm sure, we're just getting everything ready before we have kids. You're never going to be ready to have kids. You're never going to be ready for any next level in your life Nothing will ever prepare you for tomorrow except for just taking action. And with that said, some people meditate when they're trying to get clear. Personally, I love Abraham Hicks. They say it when your mind's just not, when you're feeling grouchy, take a nap.
Mm-hmm.
When I just can't stop and figure out, I do, especially on work days, I enjoy that half-hour nap.
Mm-hmm.
Kids aren't here, and I wake up so refreshed, and I can see what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. There's a and they talk about it, there's a momentum that we get going in whatever direction.
Yeah.
And if it's not serving us, we have to find a way. You have to first become aware of that,
Mm-hmm.
right? That you're traveling down this road that is not going where you want it to go. But once you're aware, then you can start looking for, okay, how do I slow this momentum? How do I change course? Something. There are options. And if you can see it and go, you know what, I just need to turn my mind off for a little while, I think I'll go take a nap.
Yeah.
Perfect. And there's maybe a nap isn't the thing for everybody, but maybe there's
might
other
be
things
taking a walk or just calling a friend, getting a coffee, anything.
Yeah.
But find that thing. Find your things.
Yeah, I'm big on physical.
Yeah.
Do something physical that requires you to pay attention.
Yeah.
Because for me, walking is not going to do it. Because if I'm in my head and that's the issue, going out and walking, I'm still in my head.
Right.
Right. But if I get on a bicycle and go ride a trail, you can't be in your head.
Right.
You have to focus on what you're doing. And that's all. It doesn't matter how you do that. That's what you have to do. You got to change.
Actually, my elliptical is coming up to my office today for the same reason. Yeah, because I can fall over my 2 feet walking across the floor with no shoes on. So I have to be, focusing on the elliptical and there, not in my head.
Yeah.
So that was already decided this morning.
Cool.
But give yourself some grace though too.
Yeah.
Right? We all need to do that.
Yeah. Nobody has a straight line to any success, to any goal.
Oh, heck no.
Right? We all do the constant adjustment stuff. And
yeah.
Are you familiar with Maxwell Maltz?
No.
There's an old book called Psycho-Cybernetics.
Oh, okay. I've heard of that. Say it one more time. I've heard. I can.
Psycho-Cybernetics.
Okay, I'm not going to try saying
Maltz.
that.
Yeah.
I've heard of the book, but I didn't know the name.
Well, I read it more years than I care to admit. But the one thing that I remember from that is he talks about a torpedo in the water fired at a ship. And that torpedo, although it looks to us like it's going in a straight line, it's never in a straight line. It's forever adjusting course.
Yeah.
Because there's currents and wind or whatever as things that are affecting its trajectory, and it's constantly being moved off course. So it has to perpetually readjust. Same thing with airplanes flying from LA to New York. You're almost never on course.
I'm so glad I'm not on the course that I was on, that I thought I was going to be on in 97.
Yeah.
When I did not mean to throw that out there like that. When I graduated high school, though, that was not a course that I would want to be on today.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we look back and I think there are a few people who would have a different opinion. A few people that would say, oh yeah, it would have been so much better had I continued doing that. I think most of us end up in a better place because of the realities of life coming along and changing it for us,
Yep. Our mess becomes our message, whether or not we're an entrepreneur. So we just need to be listening.
Yeah. All right. I don't know that I have any more questions for you. There's nothing burning that's coming up right now. So I want to thank you for being here. But before I let you go, let's give anybody who wants more Kim Sutton some info on how to find you and where to go and what to do. And
well, thank you so much for having me, by the way.
You're welcome.
Everything can be found on my website, which is at thekimsutton.com. Please remember to put the in front of Kim Sutton. So I'm just going to say it one more time, thekimsutton.com. You'll find all my social media links as well as ways to subscribe to and listen to Positive Productivity right there. And as I said, you'll find all my social media links right there. So feel free to reach out on any of the platforms that I'm on.
And I'll include all those in the show notes too. So
Great.
Great. All right. I will let you go. Thank you so much. And our paths will cross again, I'm sure.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Hi, this is Tim Starr. Thanks for joining me and Gabi on the universe between your ears. We really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us for a little while. And we'd like to see you again. So be sure to subscribe wherever it is you're consuming the podcast from, whether it's YouTube or Stitcher or iTunes or whatever the hell else is out there. We want to see you again. We also want to hear from you. So let us know what you think of each episode. Let us know if you got an idea for a future episode that you think would be just killer. Absolutely, let us know. All right? Thanks again, and we will see you next time around.